The room went quiet when my father laughed and said, "Some children make you proud, others just embarrass you." Everyone was looking at me. It was their anniversary. And that sentence changed who I was to them forever. I didn't respond. I just smiled because I hadn't seen the worst part yet. I'm the younger child in a middle-class family, nothing dramatic on the surface. No addiction stories, no crime, no chaos, just a quiet neighborhood, steady jobs and routines that rarely changed. From the outside we looked solid, safe, reliable, the kind of family people like to compare themselves to and say, at least we're doing better than most. Our house was always clean, conversations were polite, arguments, if they happened, were hidden behind closed doors. Family photos were carefully chosen and uploaded online with captions about love, gratitude and togetherness. My parents cared deeply about that image, about being seen as respectable, as successful, as people who did everything right. Growing up, I thought that meant they cared about us too, that structure meant safety, that discipline meant love. It took me years to realize that what mattered most to them wasn't how we felt, but how we reflected on them. My older sibling fit perfectly into that picture. From a young age, they knew how to perform success. Good grades came easily, teachers praised them, relatives bragged about them. Their choices were safe, predictable, and impressive in ways adults understood immediately. My parents never had to explain or defend them. Pride came naturally. I was different, but not in a dramatic way. I wasn't rebellious, I didn't cause trouble, I didn't fail out of school or disappear for weeks. I was just quieter, more thoughtful, slower to commit to one version of success. I needed time to figure things out, and that uncertainty made my parents uncomfortable. At first I didn't think it mattered. Families aren't competitions, right? Different kids, different paths, that's what people say. But inside our home, difference wasn't neutral. Difference was a problem. And slowly, without anyone officially saying it, I became that problem. The comparisons didn't start aggressively. They arrived disguised as jokes, advice, and concern. Small comments slipped into conversations like they were harmless observations, but they always landed the same way, on me. The first time I really noticed it, I was 19. We were sitting around the dinner table on an ordinary night. No guests, no celebration, just family. My mother was talking, smiling, telling a story about my sibling's latest achievement. The tone was familiar, proud, light, almost glowing. Then she turned to me and said, "See how organized they are." She laughed softly and added, "Why can't you be more like that?" Everyone laughed, not loudly, not cruelly, just enough to make it feel acceptable, normal. I laughed too. I had learned that laughter made things easier, it kept the peace, it told everyone I was in on the joke. But later that night, lying in bed, those words kept replaying. I stared at the ceiling and wondered why encouragement always felt like disappointment when it came to me. Was this how families motivated each other, or was I already being pushed into a role I never agreed to play? As the years passed, moments like that multiplied. By my mid-20s, I was working full-time, paying my own bills, handling responsibilities. I wasn't failing, I was stable. But stability didn't impress them because it didn't elevate their image. The comments became more subtle, but more precise. My father would say things like, "They're doing great, you're figuring things out." There was always a pause before that last part, just long enough to feel intentional, just long enough for others to notice. It was never harsh enough to confront, never loud enough to argue against, but sharp enough to remember long after the conversation ended. At family gatherings, relatives would ask about my sibling first. Their tone was excited, curious. When it came to me, the questions softened. "So, what are you up to these days?" Like they were expecting uncertainty, like they'd already been briefed. I started questioning myself. Was I actually behind? Was I missing something obvious? Or was I being measured against a standard that had nothing to do with who I was? No matter what I achieved, it never changed how I was spoken about. My progress didn't translate into pride because it didn't photograph well. Then came the anniversary. It was a big one. My parents planned it for months. They wanted everything perfect. They invited everyone, extended family, co-workers, neighbors, old friends. Around 50 people filled the room. Decorations were carefully chosen. Music played softly in the background. Laughter floated through the space like it was rehearsed. This wasn't just a celebration of their marriage, it was a performance. During the speeches, my parents talked about sacrifice, values, and hard work. They spoke about success and legacy. People nodded along. Some clapped. Some smiled knowingly like they were witnessing something admirable. Then my father looked straight at me. His tone didn't change, his smile stayed, and he said, "That's why we hope some people here eventually grow up." People laughed, some politely, some awkwardly. A few avoided eye contact. I didn't laugh. Because this time there was no ambiguity, no room to pretend it wasn't about me. He wanted everyone to know. And in that moment I felt something shift, not anger, not shock, but clarity. I asked myself a question I'd been avoiding for years. If I stay silent now, what does that make me later? What kind of life do you build when you keep accepting quiet humiliation in the name of family? But the breaking point wasn't just what happened in public, it was what happened after. Later that night, when most guests had left and the noise faded, I spoke to my mother quietly. I chose my words carefully. I wasn't accusing her, I just wanted to be understood. I told her how humiliated I felt, how exposed. She sighed, irritated, and said, "You're too sensitive, it was just a joke." My father overheard and added, "If you're embarrassed, maybe do something worth being proud of." That was it, no apology, no reflection, no pause, just dismissal. That's when it finally clicked. They didn't see a child, they didn't see an adult either, they saw an image problem, and I was it. For days after I replayed that night in my head, I tried to minimize it, to rationalize it, to convince myself I was overreacting. Years of conditioning told me that family always means compromise. Then something unexpected happened. A week later, my aunt called me. She asked why I looked so shocked during the speech. I didn't know how to answer. Then she sent me screenshots. Messages from the family group chat sent before the party. My parents had discussed putting pressure on me publicly. Those were their exact words. They believed shame would motivate me, that embarrassing me in front of others would push me to change. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't emotional. It was planned. That's when I stopped doubting myself. But I still hadn't seen the full picture. A few days later, another detail surfaced. My parents had updated their will. Assets were no longer divided equally. Instead, they were distributed based on who represented the family best. That sentence sat there in black and white, cold, measured, final. In that moment, everything made sense. Love wasn't unconditional. Respect was transactional. Approval had to be earned publicly. And my place in that system had already been decided long before the anniversary. So I made a decision of my own. When I confronted them, I didn't yell, I didn't accuse, I asked one calm question. "Do you even like who I am?" They didn't answer it, they doubled down. They said I was ungrateful, that I misunderstood their intentions, that family loyalty meant accepting criticism without complaint. So I showed them the screenshots. The room went silent. My father tried to justify it. My mother cried, but never apologized. And in that silence I understood everything I needed to know. I stood up and said, "I won't compete for dignity." Then I left. Leaving wasn't dramatic. It was gradual. I moved cities, changed my routine, stopped explaining myself. The guilt followed me for a while. Old habits don't disappear easily. But slowly, peace replaced it. Without constant judgment, I grew. I made choices based on what felt right, not what looked impressive. I didn't become their version of success. I became my own. They still tell people I abandoned them. I don't correct the story. Because I didn't leave out of anger. I left because respect shouldn't be negotiable, even with parents. And sometimes, the quietest exit is the most permanent form of justice.